The 9th of December, which was yesterday, marked World Anti-Corruption Day, and during commemorations at the Public Service Commission's anti-graft summit, Chief Justice Raymond Zondo commended whistleblowers. He said whistleblowers were instrumental in the finalisation of the State Capture Commission's report. He also urged government to do more to protect them. Whistleblower Babita Doekaran was murdered outside her home shortly after blowing the whistle on corruption at the Gauteng Health Department. Are efforts to protect whistleblowers progressing? Well, the Whistleblower House Executive Director Ben Theron tells us more. Ben, thank you very much for availing yourself this morning. What do we know, perhaps maybe if we look at the statistics on a yearly or a monthly or whatever basis, how big is the problem, right, of whistleblowers being executed, intimidated, etc., to understand how, I guess, big the problem is?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. You've got to understand the need for whistleblowers. Then we'll get to what happens to them, etc. The Chief Justice is very clear on his request that says to government, please help these people, please protect them. And you've got to understand the value of a whistleblower. If you take investigations done by MPA, SIU, etc., they have a big difficulty understanding the problem when they enter an organization. And what a whistleblower does is they provide them with, in fact, evidence and facts that can be used in the investigation and then build the case. So it is absolutely critical, and it makes it easier. And Judge Zondo said this previously. He said that the whistleblowers are the easiest mechanism to help fighting corruption. Why are they being targeted? And you asked the question, so let me answer the question. The whistleblowers are targeted because they uncover and they share information that regards to malfeasance as well as corruption. And what happens is, almost invariably, they have retaliation against them. Now, the retaliation can be as, when I say these things, it's all levels and grades of how the whistleblower is affected. Some people just lose their jobs. So what happens is they get targeted, they get accused and charged with bringing the company to disrepute. They've shared company confidential information, those kind of things. Then they get charged, disciplinary process, and that's trumped up, and then they are fired, dismissed, and then they lose their livelihood. So that is probably the least they get. The worst you get is when somebody dies. And if you look back over the last few years in South Africa and the cases that the Zondo Commission has had, the Vrede Dairy Farm, 4 or 5 people lost their lives because of the dairy farm and the environment that was there. You mentioned the financial officer in the Gauteng Health Department, Babita. She lost her life. The family suffers because she lost her life. She was murdered. Let's not put soft words on that. And therefore, what a sad thing about government and organizations are, Babita has lost her life. What has happened to the investigations a year down the line, more than a year down the line, is that only now they're starting to wake up, and now they start talking about the investigation report that now gets released, the companies that they know who the companies are. But for the last year, they have continued doing business. They've continued milking the system for millions. And don't forget, there are people that have lost their lives on this side. And the reason why they lost their lives is because somebody is greedy on this side. And when people steal money, it has a direct impact on service provision. So health services suffer. People cannot get health services. On the one hand, that's health. Number two, people lose their income because what happens you look at SASSA, people absolutely need the money required to survive there. And that money has been stolen by SASSA people as well as unscrupulous people that steal money. Education. People die in toilets because we don't have money, or they steal the money and they don't do the work to in fact upgrade the toilet. So therefore people die in the pit latrines. For years now that has been there. So we shouldn't forget, the reason why we need whistleblowers is to expose wrongdoing and then fixing up the problem so that we can actually provide services. And that is critical to remember.
Absolutely, Ben. Those who steal from those who are in desperate need should definitely be held accountable. I guess I'm trying to understand, perhaps if we say South Africa in the past 5 years, we've seen the murder of 50 whistleblowers, for instance, right, in trying to find some of these solutions. So do we have that kind of information that can assist us to say that, sure, we definitely have a problem, right? So like the police minister will release the statistics of how many people have been killed in South Africa in 3 months.
We do not have statistics specifically that deals with whistleblowing, because remember, how do I put it? The murder is not necessarily linked to information that was provided by the whistleblower. What we will probably have in a year's time, because we started operations in February this year, the Whistleblower House started this year in February. And what we are trying to do is to establish a database about how many whistleblowers are there, how many whistleblowers have been murdered, how many whistleblowers have lost their jobs, because the only information we have are the whistleblowers that come to us for help. And then we provide protection, we provide them with financial assistance, we help them with legal, as well as health. So we do not necessarily have, and we have very few people that work here. So we don't have the capacity to track whether when somebody is murdered. Now, you know how high the murder rate is in South Africa. How many of those can be linked to being a whistleblower? I can't tell you. Hopefully in a year from today, we will be able to speak to them. But we should not be speaking about whistleblowers being murdered. We should be talking about whistleblowers that have helped people, that have helped South Africans, and how we have been able to protect them. Now, on that point, the President has established the Anti-Corruption Advisory Council, the Anti-Corruption Task Team, and they are looking at mechanisms of how to fight corruption in South Africa, and one pillar of there would be whistleblowers. And it's important that we absolutely guide government to make sure that it's not only just the protection, but the holistic view of how do you take care of a whistleblower after, even before, and then after they blow the whistle, to make sure that they are not negatively affected, they can actually survive in society, and more importantly, they should be celebrated in South Africa. And we are working hard to make sure they get the recognition that they deserve, because they are doing these things on behalf of the South African population.
Let's use this moment to celebrate some of these success stories. I guess if you could tell us about somebody who blew the whistle and it ended well.
Well, if you look at PRASA, if you look very, very topical right now, is the Eskom case where ABB has repaid over the last year. They have repaid Eskom 1.5 billion rand. They've just settled 2.5 billion rand with the state. So therefore, more than 2.5 plus 1.5 have now flowed back into our coffers. So that is an absolutely beautiful example how, purely because somebody blew the whistle, that has been taken further, and now we've gotten back. If you look at the PRASA matter, if you look at the matter with Eskom as well as PRASA, where people have come forward with information, settlements have gone through. We must bear in mind that the fact that there's a settlement and money being paid back does not mean the company that has caused this is in fact now clear, because they will still be prosecuted in terms of the Criminal Act. However, at least some funds flow back in terms of where we can now apply that back into South Africa's economy, and we can now rebuild those institutions. Eskom is where it is because of the corruption over the last 10 years, and it's a long way to go. PRASA the same, Transnet, etc. So we need to rebuild those institutions, and we need whistleblowers to help us in this process.
Thank you very much, Ben Theron. He is the Whistleblower House Executive Director.